The void near Pluto was not empty. Space bent, twisted, and spat out something that did not belong. The ship was angular and menacing, forged from dark, non-reflective metals that drank in the feeble sunlight. It was a vessel of the triumvirate hegemony, and its name, in their harsh tongue, translated roughly to Claw of Certainty. Its commander, Kral, stood on the command platform, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking with the sound of dry bones as he surveyed the star field. A blue and white marble hung in the distance. Their target. Their next consolidation. Scan results. Kral's voice was a low grind, filtered through his helmet. The science officer, Vrix, studied his panel. The world matches low-tier consolidation profiles. Multiple incoherent energy signatures from the surface chemical explosives, primitive fission. Atmospheric composition shows excessive pollutant layers. Hundreds of distinct electromagnetic broadcasts, most conflicting. No unified planetary defense grid detected. No off-world colonies beyond basic orbital stations. Kral felt the familiar pulse of contempt. A divided, dirty, noisy world. A typical pre-contact species, busy killing itself and poisoning its nest. Easy. The hegemony had absorbed dozens like it. They would broadcast the hail, show their power, and the primitive creatures would either shatter into begging factions or fire useless weapons in a pathetic show of defiance. Then the subjugation engines would land, open a channel on all their major broadcast spectra. Project the standard consolidation hail, Kral ordered, on the moon of this noisy blue world. In a facility buried deep within the crater Plato, 2 humans were drinking terrible coffee. Minji, her eyes sharp and alert even at the end of her shift, watched the main sensor wall. Dayun was reviewing data on a tablet, complaining about the coffee machine again. Seriously, they can build a quantum pulse engine, but they can't make a decent latte. He muttered. Minji smiled, but didn't look away from the wall. Her smile died. A cluster of symbols at the very edge of the solar system plot flashed from white to urgent, pulsing crimson. A gravitational anomaly. A mass displacement. An object. It was moving fast, on a direct heading for the inner system. No transponder. No hail. Her hands flew across her console. Dayun. Pluto orbital sector. Signature is not one of ours. Dayun's tablet clattered on the desk. He swiveled to his own station, fingers dancing. Confirmed. Profile is unknown. Structure is aggressive. No waste heat bleed. Advanced stealth, but they're not trying hard to hide. He looked at her, the last of the tiredness gone from his eyes. It's a first contact scenario. Hostile posture likely. Minji's heart hammered, but her training took over. 50 years of silent, secret preparation clicked into place. She did not call a superior. She did not panic. She tapped a sequence that bypassed all normal chains of command. A soft chime echoed through lunar command. Across the dark side of the moon, in Earth's silent orbit, and in deep bunkers on the planet itself, lights began to awaken. Activating protocol. Firm hand, Minji said, her voice steady. Direct link to the Terran Unified Authority. The board is live. On the main screen, the facsimile of a world leader dissolved. It was replaced by a clean, tactical display. Earth was at the center, surrounded by layers of symbols Minji knew represented things the public never dreamed of. Cloaked sentinel platforms, gravity well generators, planetary defense rails. All idle, all waiting. Until now, aboard the Claw of Certainty, Kral's communications officer announced, "Hail broadcast complete. Commander?" Awaiting response. "We are scanning their reaction." The hegemony watched the blue planet. They expected chaos. They saw the frantic news broadcasts, the shaky telescope images from amateur astronomers, the panicked social media posts. It was the noise they anticipated. It was the perfect cover. What they did not see was the signal, tighter than a laser beam, encrypted with mathematics stolen from a dead alien race, that shot from Lunar Command to a location in Switzerland. From there, it fanned out to 20 other hidden command nodes. In less than 3 seconds, consensus was reached. The authority to respond was granted. Krall was about to order a warning shot towards their largest orbital station to hurry things along when his officer stiffened. "Commander," a directed response. "On our primary command frequency, it is extremely clear." "Put it on screen," Krall commanded, his curiosity piqued. The main viewer shifted. Instead of the expected face of a terrified leader from one of their many nations, the screen organized itself with a calm, terrifying efficiency. The largest window showed a woman in a simple, dark uniform. Her black hair was tied back neatly. Her face was calm, severe, and held an expression of absolute authority. Her eyes looked directly out, as if she could see right all's bridge. Flanking her were 3 smaller windows. A man with a military bearing, his jaw set. A woman with intelligent, assessing eyes. Another man with a diplomatic yet unyielding expression. The woman in the center spoke first. Her voice was translated perfectly into the hegemony's command tongue, without the usual lag or errors of a fresh translation metrics. It was cool, precise, and carried the weight of a whole world. "Unidentified vessel. You have breached sovereign Terran space." Krall blinked. Sovereign Terran space? The phrase was wrong. Worlds had territory, not sovereign space. And Terran? A unified species name, the woman continued, her tone leaving no room for interpretation. "Power down your drives and weapon systems. You will be boarded and escorted for debriefing." She paused, letting the sheer audacity of the command hang in the air. To Krall, it was like an insect ordering a starship to land. "Comply immediately." Silence. Complete, dead silence on the hegemony bridge. Krall stared, his mind struggling to process. This was not a plea. This was not defiance. This was an instruction. A command. From a species that was supposed to be pre-contact. They were not reacting to him. They were issuing him orders. His instinct was rage. A low growl started in his chest. But Vrix, the science officer, suddenly let out a sharp, terrified click. "Commander, new sensor data. The scan was wrong. It was a facade." Krall turned. "Explain." "The planet. The emissions are a mask. Their atmosphere is threaded with controlled purification streams. The orbital debris. I am reading power signatures. They are not satellites. They are weapons platforms." And Vrix's voice trembled. "We are surrounded." Krall looked at his tactical display. It had been empty a moment before. Now it was blossoming with red markers. Dozens of them. Silent, sleek craft he had not detected, emerging from behind the moon, from clever hides in the asteroid belt, from the shadow of the planet itself. They were not firing. They were simply there, positioning themselves in a perfect, inescapable net. A subtle energy field, a warp-dampening pulse, had also enveloped his ship, locking it in place. The woman on the screen, this Director Una Park, according to the data now scrolling on his panel, watched him. She showed no triumph, no fear, only the patient expectation of an authority figure waiting for a call, subordinate to follow a clear directive. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Commander Krall felt a cold, sharp spike of something entirely new. It was not fear of battle. It was the dread of having made a catastrophic, fundamental error in judgment. He had come to consolidate a primitive world. Instead, he had knocked on the door of a power that had been waiting for him. and it had answered with the calm, terrifying voice of the law. A deep, resonant hum filled the bridge of the claw of certainty as Commander Kroll's rage broke the silence. He could not see the weapons pointed at him, but he could feel the trap closing. The calm, commanding face of Director Una Park on his screen was an insult to his entire being. His mandibles clacked in fury. They dare! He ground out. A facade. A trick. They hide behind illusions and think it makes them strong. Vrix! Target their primary orbital facility, the large one with the rotating spokes. We will show them the cost of their arrogance. Charge the primary beam to 5%. Let them see its glow. Let them beg before we erase it. He would not be ordered about by primitives. This was a bluff. It had to be. On the viewer, Una Park's expression did not change. She simply watched, as if observing a mildly interesting experiment. In a smaller window, the military man, Jinwoo Kim, spoke quietly to someone off-screen. On the Lunar Command Hub, Minji's voice was tight. Hostile vessel is powering a directed energy weapon, targeting the International Spaceport. Dayan's hands flew across his console. Confirmed. Energy spike. They're going for a show of force. Jinwoo Kim's face appeared on a direct line to their station. His voice was utterly calm. Implement firm hand, sub-protocol pinpoint. One disablement, surgical. Acknowledged, sir, Minji said. She entered the command. There was no countdown. No warning shot. No dramatic surge of light from Earth or the Moon. From a seemingly empty patch of space high above the lunar North Pole, a magnetic rail, hidden for 30 years inside a camouflaged crater, activated. It accelerated a slender, tungsten carbide rod to a fraction of the speed of light. The launch was a silent puff of expelled gas and a minor power flicker. The projectile was invisible, a speck of dark metal against the darker void. Aboard the hegemony ship, Vrix saw the energy spike on his panel a microsecond before impact. Commander. A kinetic, the claw of certainty shuddered. Not a massive, hull-tearing explosion. It was a sharp, violent jolt, like being struck by a precise giant hammer. Alarms shrieked. On the external viewer, the terrifying, glowing barrel of their primary weapon, a device that had cracked continents, was simply gone. A clean, melted stump smoked where it had been. The shot had not targeted the ship's core, its engines, or its bridge. It had targeted their threat, and removed it with contemptuous ease. Kroll was thrown against his console. The psychic feedback from the weapon's sudden death screamed through the bridge crew. They clutched their heads, disoriented and in pain. Silence returned, deeper and more profound than before. The only sound was the frantic hiss of emergency systems sealing the minor breach. On the screen, Una Park was still there. She tilted her head slightly. "Your compliance is required," she said, as if noting he had spilled a drink dot in that moment. Kroll's understanding of the universe fractured. This was not how conquest worked. The strong broke the weak. But here, he was the weak one, and the strong were not breaking him. They were correcting him. A cold terror, colder than the void outside, seeped into his carapace. On Earth, in a vault buried deep under the Alps, a young man named Taiyang watched the event unfold on his monitor. He was an analyst for the Terran Unified Authority's Historical Integrity Division. His job was not to make decisions, but to understand the past that led to this moment. The silent, hidden past dot as the alien ship drifted, powerless and weaponless. He pulled up a file. It was labeled Genesis. It was not a public record. It was the truth. 50 years ago, a small, graceful ship, not of hegemony design, had fallen from the sky. It crashed in a remote part of the Siberian taiga. It was not an invasion. It was a disaster. The sole occupant, a being from a species humans would later call the Lumin, was dying. It was found by a Russian geologist named Anya Petrova. She did not call her government first. She called a specific secret number she had been given years before, a number for people who believed in preparing for the stars. From that crash, everything changed. The Lumin ship was a treasure trove of technology, but more importantly, its database contained a history of the local galaxy. It spoke of young, aggressive species, like the triumvirate hegemony. It spoke of predators who preyed on divided worlds. Humanity faced a choice. They could panic, fight over the technology, and present a fractured face to the cosmos. Or they could do something else in secret. The leaders of the major powers met. They were terrified, but they were smart. They saw the pattern. They created the silent unification accords. Publicly, the Cold War warmed, then cooled again. New conflicts flared. The world seemed as messy and divided as ever. But in the shadows, every nation poured resources into a single, unified project, the Terran Unified Authority. They reverse-engineered the Lumin gravity drives, their stealth composites, their quantum computers. They built shipyards in the dark between asteroids. They established the Lunar Command Hub. They created a global defense grid disguised as atmospheric research and communication networks. And they decided on a strategy. They would never be the helpless victim. They would be the unexpected authority. They would let aggressors see exactly what they expected to see, a noisy, dirty, quarreling planet until it was too late. They would be the trap that looked like a rabbit hole. Tai Yang scrolled through images. The first hidden shipyard. The first president to be quietly briefed and agree to the lie. The first 2A director. He looked at the current live feed. Director Una Park, the public face of a 50-year secret, staring down an alien commander. On the hegemony bridge, Brix was speaking, his voice a hollow whisper. Commander, the scan. It was not just wrong. It was fed. They have emission forgers, pattern projectors. Their entire planetary output is a performance. A stage play for beings like us. They wanted us to see disunity. They wanted us to feel superior. He brought up new data on the main screen, overlaying it with their initial scan. The pollution formed precise, shifting patterns, atmospheric processors cleaning and tuning the air. The warring energy signatures were tests of the planetary shield generators. The thousands of primitive satellites were a network mind of weapons and sensors, any one of which could have fired the shot that disarmed them. They have audited us. Commander, Rick said, the horror clear. They knew what we would look for. They prepared a false answer. And now they are auditing our response. And we are failing. Kral looked from the ruined stump of his weapon to the calm face on the screen. He was not a conqueror here. He was a specimen under observation, a subject being assessed. The demand to power down was not a request from an equal. It was an instruction from a superior to a malfunctioning tool. He had come to add a world to the hegemony's list. Instead, he had stumbled into the jurisdiction of a power he never knew existed. A power that did not conquer, but regulated. The freezing silence on his bridge was no longer just shock. It was the dawning, chilling understanding of their new place in a reordered universe. They were not the hunters. They were the ones being processed. The silence on the bridge of the Claw of Certainty was a physical weight. Kral could hear the faint, panicked clicks of his crew's mandibles. The main viewer still showed the face of Director Una Park. She had not spoken again. She simply waited, her patience more terrifying than any shout. A new, softer chime echoed through the bridge. Vrix looked at his panel, his limbs trembling slightly. Commander, a small craft. It has detached from a hidden platform near the moon. It is on an intercept course. Velocity is moderate. No weapon signatures. Yet, show me, Krall growled. The external view shifted. The craft was unlike anything in the hegemony. It was sleek and smooth, shaped like a teardrop. Its surface was a matte gray that seemed to absorb light. It moved without engines flaring, without heat plumes. It simply glided through space as if the void were water. It approached the hegemony ship not like a warrior, but like a maintenance vehicle approaching a docked vessel. They are coming to board, Krall said, the reality settling in his gut like a stone. Boarding was something they did to others. It was a prelude to pillaging, to taking slaves and technology. The humiliation burned worse than the laser that had disarmed him. Shall I activate internal defenses? The shock troopers? His weapons officer asked, a last spark of defiance in his voice. Krall looked at the clean stump of his main weapon. He looked at the hundreds of silent red dots still holding position around his ship on the tactical screen. A single perfect shot. One kinetic strike from a weapon he never saw. What would they do if he fought inside his own holes? He imagined the gray craft simply locking on to his ship's power core from the outside and venting them all into the dark. No, he said, the word tasting of ash. Let them come. But record everything. The hegemony high command must see this. The gray craft connected to their main airlock with a soft, precise thud. There was no grinding, no force. The seals hissed as they matched perfectly. A green light appeared on the hegemony control panel, indicating the outer door was being unlocked remotely by the boarders. They owned the door already. The inner door slid open. 3 humans walked onto the hegemony bridge. They wore simple, dark gray uniforms without rank or decoration. They carried no bulky rifles, only small devices on their belts and one handheld scanner. The one in front was a man of average height, with a calm, composed face. His name was Junseo. Behind him were a woman, Yunbi, and another man, Sang-hoon. Their eyes swept the room, noting everything, lingering on no one. They showed no fear at the sight of the hulking, armored hegemony warriors who stood, weapons lowered but tense, around the bridge. They showed no awe at the alien technology. Krall drew himself up to his full height, his exoskeleton flaring slightly in a display meant to intimidate. He took 2 heavy steps forward, looming over Inspector Junseo. The human looked up at him. He did not step back. He did not flinch. He simply raised his handheld device and scanned Krall from head to toe. A soft beep sounded. Commander Krall of the triumvirate hegemony vessel Claw of Certainty, Junseo said, his voice neutral, reading from the device. You are in violation of Terran Codex, Article 7, uninvited intrusion with hostile posture. He looked up from the screen, meeting Krall's multifaceted eyes. You will submit to a full scan of your vessel. Your crew will surrender all weapons and data cores. You are now under the authority of the Terran Unified Authority. Krall's rage boiled over. You think your tricks give you authority? You are animals who found a sharper stone. We are the triumvirate hegemony. We have consumed stars. Junseo listened patiently. When Krall finished, Junseo looked back at his device. Your species' physiological profile notes a heightened aggression response linked to adrenal-like glands here, he said, pointing calmly at a spot on Krall's chest plate. Psychological triggers include challenges to hierarchical standing and perception of diminished threat. Your hegemony's record includes 47 documented consolidations of pre-contact species. War crimes include orbital bombardment of population centers, species-wide neural conditioning, and resource stripping leading to planetary ecological collapse on 12 worlds, including Kyleth and Viridia Prime. He listed them. He listed worlds. names the hegemony thought were forgotten by the galaxy, victories they celebrated. The human knew them. He knew their crimes. Kral felt the fight drain out of him, replaced by a deep, cold shock. This was not a warrior. This was a clerk. A terrifying, all-knowing clerk. You are not in a position to dictate terms. Commander, Junzio repeated, his tone the same as when he first spoke. Your vessel is impounded. Your crew will be processed. Please instruct them to comply. Resistance, he added, glancing at the still smoking weapon stump visible through the main viewport, is statistically unwise. Behind Junzio, Yunbi and Sangun moved. They walked to the main command consoles. The hegemony officers looked to Kral, paralyzed. He gave a slow, defeated nod. You and Bai placed a small pad on the console. It flashed, and the ship's system schematic appeared above it in glowing blue lines. She began tapping, sectioning off power, locking down weapon controls, isolating the drive. She did not hack. She simply commanded. The ship's own systems, built by a proud warlike species, yielded to her authority without a fight. Sang-hoon approached the shocked shock troopers. He did not draw a weapon. He held up a small, disc-like object. It emitted a low hum. The hegemony warriors' own powered armor suits suddenly went rigid, then powered down completely, locking them inside like statues. They toppled over one by one with heavy thuds, unable to move a single limb. It was not violence. It was a quiet, efficient switch being turned off. Kral watched his proud warriors become helpless statues. He watched a human woman casually take control of his ship's brain. He stood before a human man who knew his darkest secrets. Inspector Junzio looked at him. The scan will begin now. You will accompany me. Your cooperation will be noted. This was the worst part. There was no glory in this defeat. No battle to sing about. There was only procedure. They were not being conquered. They were being processed. The humiliation was absolute. They had come to bring fire in chains, and instead they were being filed away by calm people in gray uniforms. The claw of certainty was no longer a warship. It was evidence. And Commander Kral was no longer a conqueror. He was a subject in custody, being led away by a man who hadn't even raised his voice. The room was white, stark, clean, and brightly lit. There were no windows. The only furniture was a smooth, rounded table and 2 chairs, one on each side. The air was cool and smelled of nothing. For Commander Kral, it was a sensory void, more unnerving than any dungeon. He sat in one chair, his exoskeleton clicking softly against the hard surface. The other chair was empty. He was alone, but he knew he was watched. There were no visible sensors, but he felt their eyes on him. The crushing weight of the silent ship, the effortless boarding, the knowing words of Inspector Junzio, it all pressed down on him. He was not just defeated. He was understood. It was a terrifying feeling. A section of the wall slid open without a sound. A woman entered. She was not in the gray uniform of the boarders. She wore a simple, dark blue suit. Her face was intelligent, her expression calm, but not unkind. This was Subin Choi, diplomatic envoy of the Terran Unified Authority. She carried a thin tablet. She sat in the empty chair and placed the tablet on the table. She did not speak at first. She simply looked at him, her gaze assessing behind a section of that same white wall. On the other side of a one-way panel, Hannah Lee watched. The scientific advisor stood with her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the alien commander. She was not here for diplomacy. She was here to learn. Every twitch, every click of his mandibles, the dilation of his eye clusters, it was all data. Subin finally spoke. Her voice was clear and measured. Commander Kral, I am Envoy Subin Choi, This is not an interrogation. It is a debrief. Do you understand the difference? Kral stared at her. You take my ship. You paralyze my warriors. You call it a debrief. His translator box made the words flat, but the bitterness came through. An interrogation seeks answers you do not wish to give, Subin explained, her tone unchanged. A debrief is for me to give you information, to explain your situation, and to present your choices. Choices. Kral repeated the word like it was a foreign concept. Subin activated her tablet. A holographic image sprang to life above it. It showed the claw of certainty approaching Earth. Then it zoomed out, showing the hidden Tua platforms, the railgun shot, the boarding. It was a clinical replay of his humiliation. Your actions, from the moment you entered Terran space, have been logged and evaluated against our legal framework, Subin said. You committed a hostile first contact. You attempted a show of lethal force. By the standards of the Terran Unified Authority, this is barbaric. It is uncivilized. Kral felt a fresh jolt of anger. They were calling him uncivilized? Subin continued, swiping her finger. The image changed. Now it showed a complex document, written in clean geometric symbols. The title, in the hegemony tone, read, Terran First Contact Protocol, Framework for Galactic Interaction. This is our law for things like you. Subin said, you came here offering only chains and fire. That is not how a stable community is built. We are offering you a path to correction. She zoomed in on a section. You have two options. The first, you and your vessel will be entered into our registry as a hostile first contact probationary status. This is not a treaty. It is a conditional entry into a system of order. It requires from you a full, verifiable disclosure of the triumvirate hegemony's military capabilities, territorial boundaries, and historical consolidation records. Kral's breath caught. It was an unthinkable demand. It was the surrender of every secret. In return, Subin went on, your ship and crew will be returned to hegemony space. A Tua observer will accompany you. Your bordering zones near other pre-contact species will be subject to supervised demilitarization. You will be monitored. For a period of no less than 100 of your years, your expansions will cease. You will learn a new way, or, Kral asked, his voice a whisper. Or, Subin said, her face becoming grave. You may refuse. You may attempt to leave with your ship in its current disabled state. If you manage to do so, the triumvirate hegemony will be added to the Terran Unified Authority's exterminatus list. This is not a threat of immediate war. It is a classification. It means that in any future encounter, in any quadrant of space, a hegemony vessel will be considered a lethal pest. It will be removed without warning, without negotiation, and without further contact. Your species will be quarantined from civilized space until you evolve beyond your current predatory habits. She let the words hang in the sterile air. This is not a negotiation, Commander. It is a verdict. And a mercy. The choice is which form of that mercy you will accept. Behind the wall, Hana Lee nodded slowly. The psychology was perfect. They were not offering a fight. They were offering a bureaucratic outcome, probation or permanent pariah status. Both were forms of control, but one allowed for survival, for a future. It forced the hegemony to view itself not as a glorious empire, but as a problem to be managed, a patient to be rehabilitated. Kral sat frozen. He had come to issue ultimatums. Now he was being given a selection of punishments. His mind raced, trying to find the angle, the leverage, the trap. There was none. Only the cold, clean logic of a power that viewed conquest as a messy, outdated concept. They didn't want his territory or his slaves. They wanted his compliance. They wanted his species to sit down and be quiet. You? You think you can dictate to the entire hegemony? He stammered. We are not dictating to the hegemony, Subin corrected gently. We are dictating to you. You are the representative who crossed our border. Your actions have consequences. You will take our terms to your high command. You will be our messenger. The next time they consider bothering a quiet blue world, they will remember the choice we gave you. And they will think very, very carefully. She stood up, picking up her tablet. The hologram vanished. You have some time to consider. Inspector Juncio will check on you soon. Think about what kind of future you want for your people. One under authority, or one in the dark. She left as quietly as she had entered. The wall sealed behind her. Kral was alone again in the white room. The silence was total. He was not thinking of escape or battle. He was thinking of the look on the face of the hegemony's supreme commander when he returned, disarmed, and presented these terms. He was thinking of the word probationary status. He was thinking of the word exterminatus. He had believed the galaxy was a jungle. He had just met the game wardens, and they had given him a form to fill out.